Well, hello, students. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you enjoyed not having to read as much yesterday, but I hope you did actually do your flashcards that you were supposed to do. Well, since most of you voted and voted for knowledge and skepticism, we're going to go ahead and start the nature of the human soul. Just kidding. We are going to start our section on knowledge and skepticism. So if you have your book, this is page 217, and we're going to start with Augustine, as we kind of seem to usually do, is start with Augustine. So as we start thinking through what we're talking about, what is our big question here? What they were dealing with was not what knowledge is, kind of what we would call base level epistemological thought. The question that our philosophers will be dealing with in regards to knowledge and skepticism is how can we make room for knowing things, but also understanding that we could be wrong and that we need to be. There are levels of skepticism. There's full-on kind of Greek skepticism, which is nothing exists, we can prove nothing exists, so I can just jump off a cliff and it won't really matter, to a more measured skepticism where we say, well, I can be sure of only a very few things, and so I can't trust anything outside of this little circle, and it goes on from there. So their real question was, where do we fit in all of these things? And so that's where Augustine is really starting with, not even just what can we not know, but what is it that we do know for sure that we could never, ever, ever be skeptical on. And you will find, we will start reading, we're going to not read very much today, we're going to do the bulk of our reading tomorrow actually, but we'll find in our first little part, it'll sound familiar to you if you're familiar with Descartes and what he famously said, which is, I think, therefore I am. Augustine's twist, and that's actually not true, it's not Augustine's twist, he wrote it some 1,000 years, 1,200 years actually, before Descartes, but his point was, if I am being deceived, then I exist. So we're on page 117, if you want to go ahead and turn there, and just read that whole first section, it's paragraph 26, with the heading, If I am deceived, I exist. So there is Augustine's argument on what we need to at least not be skeptical on. He says, if I'm being, it's a rather clever argument if you think about it. If I'm being deceived, what does that mean? Well, are dead people deceived? Excluding zombies, no, dead people aren't deceived. So if I am being deceived even, I exist. And if I'm experiencing, I exist. So he wants to argue against those who would say, but you can't trust any of your experiences. And he says, well, even if I'm being deceived, then if I'm not experiencing everything else, I'm experiencing being deceived, and therefore I still have experience and I exist. So this is actually a step stronger in a lot of ways, even in the beginning, than I think, therefore I am. But he's actually going to go even more strongly, and I don't know if you caught it, so it's good that we review it. In Augustine's assertions here, he's actually claiming three things that are all important. One, we exist. Two, we know we exist. And three, we take delight in our being and in our knowing. So he's added on to just existing, knowing that we exist. This is different. Just existing is one thing. Knowing that we exist is vastly different. This is what moves us from a metaphysical question, do I exist, to an epistemological question, do I know that I exist? Augustine's answer to both is yes. But then he tacks on, and it's important because of what he will build towards, this thought that we delight, we enjoy both existing and knowing. And he doesn't mean this in a necessarily happy, joyous, never depressed sort of idea of we enjoy, but in that it is what brings delight to the soul. It is what moves and operates and causes the soul to function. So he very interestingly doesn't want to just be content with existing. And that was Descartes' full thing. And this is what distinguishes Augustine. Interestingly, it's why Augustine's less famous maybe for some of this, because Descartes was willing to just land somewhere rather specific. Augustine wanted to grow this and make it something huge. But he wants to make sure that it's not just existing. Knowledge is here. So, if we're trying to make categories, what do we have to know? What can we know? Existing is something that we do necessarily, but also something that we can know. We know that we exist. You could be deceived on anything else. You cannot be deceived on existing. And he'll even go on to describe the same exact thing when he's talking about our delighting. Because we delight, you're like, well, what if you're deceived? What if you're not actually delighting in it? His argument would be, well, I'm delighting in being deceived then, which is still a delighting, and I'm still not confused, and I'm still not wrong about this. So this is where Augustine is going, and this is where we will build off of from here. So this is the foundation. This is the ground rock. 3 things. We'll review them again. 1, we exist. 2, we know that we exist. And then 3, we delight in knowing we exist, and we delight, I said that backwards, we delight in existing, and we delight in knowing that we exist. So this is where Augustine's going. This is what he will build off of. And from here, there will be a lot more things that we can know, but we have to start here at this foundational level. So not much reading today, kind of a basic lesson, but where he goes from here is a little difficult. So I want to give it its full share, and so we'll definitely cover that tomorrow. If you have any questions, you guys can always ask the question in the bottom, here on the comment of the video or in the Google Classroom, wherever is easier for you guys. I hope you're doing well. One thing I did want to talk about before we end today is our final paper for the semester. So I said it was going to be a little different, and we have enough topics under our belt that you need to start thinking about what you want to do. So what I'm asking you do this semester is take one of our topics, one of our big questions we've asked. Does God exist? If so, what is he like? Do we have a free will? If so, how? What are the other ones we talked about? My brain is farting on right now. The problem of universals. Do universals exist? If so, in what sense? And now, what can we know? What can we not know? And how does all of our knowledge fit into those 2 categories? So these are our big questions, and you need to start thinking about which one you want to have an opinion on that's bigger and more, that's building off of what we read before. So it won't be enough to just say, well, this is what these people said. This is what these people thought. We're going to push you to think up your own thoughts, to think through the consequences of your thoughts. All of our thoughts have consequences. And so as you are writing this, you need to deal with that. So what? I believe that universals don't exist. That means something to your life. What? Well, that'll be for you to decide and write about. So you're about to go on spring break. So when we come back from spring break, and I'll mention this tomorrow too, but when we come back from spring break, you'll have an assignment which will be, tell me your topic, and we'll flush through it. Be prepared to defend why you want to talk about it, because I might push you back. And just so you know, we will at least cover after skepticism the nature of the human soul. So if you want to deal with what is the nature of the human soul, that would be another big question. You won't know exactly how you'll deal with it yet, but it'll be on there. So if that sounds interesting, that could be one as well. So enjoy the rest of your day, get all your work done, and have a wonderful, have a wonderful rest of whatever it is. I don't know if you're watching morning, evening, night, but I hope it's good, whatever it is. Talk to you guys later.